warm up. Let's see. Okay, it's been a while since I've been doing this. Let me pop this out here. Got a slightly new setup, so let me know if anything's weird. But luckily, I've got a lot more room now, so I can see chat a little bit better here. Okay, let's see. Is there anything we've been working on that might be fun to kind of warm up with? Let's see, streaming, Commander Pickle Brick, Smarky. Yeah. Let's just start out with, it doesn't really matter. Hey everybody, thanks for showing up. I'm just going to do a really quick warm-up. It's been a while since I've actually been in ZBrush. I just got back. I feel like I've been behind this whole time. So let me think. Okay, drag out an object out of my canvas. Okay. Go into edit mode. Make Polymesh 3D. Matcap gray. Okay. Whew. I think we're good. I'm going to hit X to go across X symmetry. And I've got a star here. I can go into my move brush, and also I'm using quite a new system here. So, and I've got like different monitors set up that I've been trying. I'm getting new arms today, so I'm going to try some different configurations. So I don't know if anything's weird, just let me know. But anyway, what am I doing here? So I got my custom menu here. I'm going to hit Alt A to go out get that. I can also go over here to geometry. So usually, I guess if I wanted to do some Z-modeler stuff in here, I could go in here to like insert single edge loop and start doing this. But this is kind of a weird shape to start with for Z-modeler. So you know what? Let's go into Dynamesh. So turn off blur. Resolution 128 is fine. All right, so we got some Dynamesh here. I can turn off polyframe. Hold down Shift. I prefer smooth stronger. It's actually kind of nice talking to myself, walking through my ZBrush setup. So preferences, edit. I like to turn off align cursor to surface so I don't get that little flip-floppy little icon. Okay, I remember what it's like to be back in ZBrush. All right, everything's working fine. Okay, so let's turn this into something real quick. I'm gonna go over here, hold on, Control Shift, and we're gonna clip curve this here, and we're gonna clip these sides back. And we're going to clip this head back. So we're going to make a head real quick. So I can kind of give this a little curve here. Now obviously if I was going to make a head from scratch, I would probably start with a shape like a sphere, or maybe a sphere added to a rectangle. But since we're just kind of starting out here, oh, you know what? Am I mapped correctly? Good. Okay. My mapping's a little bit off. Hold on. Let me see. Wacom. Again, I'm kind of setting this up kind of weird. So if I go to my mapping here, I've got a really big monitor over here. Okay, it looks like, I wish I could make this bigger. Let's do portion of this screen, click to define screen area. I just want it to be, because I've got one huge monitor, another huge monitor turned on its side over here. Soon I'm going to have two huge monitors and then one monitor on the side, but I'm just setting my Wacom tablet area, so it's just going to the ZBrush here. Okay. Here to here, good enough. Okay, so we'll go into our clay brush here, and we'll smooth it down, and this will be kind of the start of our head shape here. And we're going to need a little bit more chin, so we can pull that out. Now, with my standard brush here, I'm going to crank up my Z intensity just a bit, and if I hold down, now if I hold down Shift right now, you're going to see it's going to snap to that line here, and if I let go of Shift, it's going to create that line. If I go up here to my stroke, and turn my lazy radius up, I'm going to get a longer red line. And of course, if I hold down Shift, I'm still going to get that snappy red line. If I want to get rid of that completely, all I got to do is tap L to turn off lazy mouse. And now when I hold down Shift, it'll just constrain it to the camera, which I sometimes find a little bit more helpful. But anyway, we can go like hairline, and then 1/3 is going to be my brow line, and 1/3 is going to be my mouth line, something like that. And then in between here is going to be my ears and my head. This will usually fit within a box right here. So if we go halfway down this side here, this will be where our ear lies. Of course, the ear is going to be at a little bit of an angle, so we can say, okay, that's where the ear goes. Luckily for us, if we go to BI brush insert, we can go over here to our insert body parts here, and then we got an ear we can pull from. So we can kind of pull this ear right in there. And we'll go ahead and move that around. And while this is masked, we can go ahead, let's reset this. And we'll just push this in, and we'll kind of mush this around just a little bit here. And we'll rotate this back just a tiny bit. There we go. We can go ahead and control drag. We're just working with a Dynamesh here, so it's going to Dynamesh those two things together. If we want to put like a neck on here, I'm going to go in here and grab a cylinder, and we'll just go straight along the back, and we'll just put this right in here. And I'll rotate this back and down, and that can be the start of our neck. Good enough. All right, so then on the face here, we've got our midline here. Because we have lazy mouse turned off again, we're just going to be able to go straight down here. And again, if this is our brow line, which is going to go from here to the nose line, so there's our nose. And then normally you'd want to like chew this in here, chew this in. You'd want to go and maybe clip this in. So we can go in here and kind of clip this out just a little bit. We kind of put some eyeballs in there. We could also kind of put the planes of the face in here. So we can put like the chin in here. We can kind of sculpt this up. You can also use primitives for this too if you just want to like insert like a sphere or something. And we can drop the jaw right along in here too. Ears here, and then I got smooth stronger. And then you can also go into clay brush or clay buildup, and we put in some sternocleidomastoids right here along the side of the face here. Okay. Also go in the clay brush here. So here's where our cheekbones would be. Our zygomatic arch on this side, zygomatic bone, and then this would go down here to like the ball of the mouth, and that's just to ensure that you have draft of the face. Now see how it's kind of flat here? Let's fix that. We're going to kind of pull this back so that the front of the face here kind of eases back down to the sides of the face here. Also on the side, speaking of, you can kind of clip this back too. That's a little bit much. You can go in here with your H polish brush too and kind of just start developing the planes of your face if you want to kind of see that a little bit better. So we go here and kind of move this back. And again, go in here with our H polish brush and go like, okay, so here's the front, here's the side, here's the front, and here's the side. And you can hold down Alt if you want to pull out to a surface, and then let go of Alt to kind of push into a surface. And now you've kind of got planes of the face going here. And you can kind of, you know, the jaw goes down here, but you're also going to want to put a little bit of padding down here. That's where your throat goes, and then your hyoid bone, and you got a gland down here, your thyroid gland, I think. So your hyoid bone's going to be here, and then your thyroid gland's going to be kind of your Adam's apple. And that's also going to have a little bit of meat in there. And then we guess we can also go ahead and add the traps here. So I'm going to go ahead and mask this out. And then we'll just use our gizmo here to kind of pull, stop switching. There we go. Gonna pull that out. And now we could just Dynamesh these together, use our move brush here. You can also use inflate. Inflate this out, inflate this down. Then we can go ahead and mask and move again. There we go. And we can use Damien's standard and kind of start carving this in. And this is where we're going to put in our clavicles, and again our sternomastoid here, and then our traps are going to be back here. And we can go ahead and dig this out here just a little bit. There we go. Cool. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Again, we're just kind of warming up. It's been a whole little bit since I've been doing this. I've been gone for a little bit. I was in Italy for a while, and now I'm back, and now I'm behind with everything. So I'm a little bit frazzled, but we'll have some fun today. So we'll kind of build this out a little bit. And again, I'm just going to make, always working in the round, always making constant adjustments. And you can always go in here and it's like, okay, these ears are too far out. So I'm going to go in here, hold on control. Let's go into mask lasso, and we'll just mask this out here. And also right when I got back to Central Texas from Italy, I was fine as far as like allergies go. No problems at all. And then as soon as I got back to Texas, it was like, not feeling it. So like if you can probably hear it in my voice, I'm a little bit, ugh. Thanks, Austin. So anyways, what I did there was if I hold down Alt and click this little button here, you can go to Unmask Mesh Center, and then you can hold down Alt and reposition that. Then you can make these, you know, any kind of direction you want, or you can just go ahead here and scale them out. Now, when I scale this, it's going to go out from the midpoint or in from the midpoint. Turn on LSim. That'll put on local symmetry, and now you can like scale it in and out from this point. Let's go ahead and give him some big old ears. Or her. I don't know what I'm making yet. This is just generic head here. Now, of course, if I'm just going to make a generic base head that I want to start from and not have to go through this process again, I'd keep those ears normal sized, and then I could always just use this base head again to start with, so I don't have to do this again. But since we're just kind of warming up, there's no problem with just doing an exercise here. So when the ear comes into the head, it's going to kind of curve around and in. I'm going to hold down Alt with the Damien standard brush. That'll kind of pull out and then kind of dig in, go this way. And you have your helix in here that we can kind of push in and then pull out. Again, I'm using my hotkeys to switch between the standard brush and the Damien standard brush and the clay brush and the clay buildup brush. Just all the brushes that I use all the time. You can set up hotkeys for that. That's just holding down on your brush menu, hold down Control Alt Tap and then set your hotkey. And then you're going to want to go up here to your preferences, config, store your config if you do any custom UI stuff, and then hotkeys. You're going to want to store those. So yeah, we'll go in here to my clay brush here, and we'll kind of build up this little section here. All right, so I got that ear kind of blocked out, and okay, now I need to fix these eyeballs here. For the eyeballs, let's go ahead and do BI, brush insert, and you've got some primitives in here. Hit M, or you can go up here and just scroll through here. I usually tend to hit M on old ZBrush style. So we can do a polysphere, we can do an insert sphere. Let's do sphere 32, I think. We'll grab that one. The reason I'm using that is I can kind of use these polarized caps as kind of pupils here, so we can kind of see. And kind of fit those in there. Now, I don't want to merge these together. If I control drag again, now these are all going to be Dynamesh together, right? So what I'm going to do instead is while this is masked, I'm going to go over here and split unmasked points. And that's going to throw these down to their own subtool. Of course, that's under your subtool menu here. Now for the nose, again, let's go back into that primitives menu. This is actually my own primitives menu, but very similar to the one you can use. And we'll just go ahead and pop in a little nose here. So we'll go ahead and put that here, and we'll kind of put that nose shape in here. So now we did do the original line. We did the brow line to the nose line. Now this ear got bigger than it was, so the ears usually go from the brow to the bottom of the nose, but this will be fine. We can eyeball it. That's fine. So we can put the nose in here, and we kind of get in the shape. Now the top of the nose will usually have, what do they call it? I've heard it called like a keystone or something. It's basically where the brow comes in like this. I'm going to recess that nose just a tiny bit here. I'm going to keep the top of the nose flat. We can always fix that later. And again, we're always looking for a draft here, so we're going to make sure that on the face we have the front of the face is curving back to the sides of the face here. And then we've got the nose, which is fine. And if I want to, I can actually leave this nose as a separate piece too for a little bit. So again, I'm going to go do a split. I've got two different types of split in my custom menu, and again, those are just down here in the split menu. I've got split masked points and split unmasked points. If I do a split unmasked points, that's going to, as you can kind of tell from the placement of this, it's going to throw it down into its own subtool. If I do split masked points, it's going to split everything else off and leave me with that selected. So that's just kind of how I can tell in my brain which one to use. And the reason why I have those two set up is when I would do live Boolean rendering, which would basically be, I'll switch these two here. I would make this into a start group, but you don't have to since we're only dealing with very few pieces. But you can make a start group here, live Boolean, and now I can live Boolean this nose out, for example. We can just kind of live Boolean this nose. So if I'm doing a bunch of negative insert mesh brushes and I want to split them downwards, that's when I'm going to use split unmasked points. I'm going to split them down. But anyway. Cool. Hey, thanks for showing up, everybody. We're just kind of doing a little warm-up exercise here to get me acclimated back to working on stuff. I'm going to go here. So now we're going to do like the mouth ball here. And kind of just put this in here, and this is really just to make sure that, again, we're working, we have draft on our face, and we're putting a mouth on a rounded plane and not just putting a mouth on like a straight flat box. It's going to look really awkward. I'm going to kind of mush this around a little bit. So the muzzle of our mouth is going to be something like this. It's going to go curve up around the top of the nose here and then go to the bottom. And if I want to, I could duplicate this down, holding down Control and just duplicating this out. And I can make that into a chin. We want to make sure that, you know, we get our nose and then our mouth and then our chin, and kind of scale that down. I guess that'll work. And there will actually be another line here. I guess before I do that one, let's do this. Let's hold down Control, drag this one out. So if you guys have ever used, oh man, what do they call it? Riley abstractions, I think they're called. Or the Riley method or the Riley abstractions or something like that. It's basically a way to use these abstract concentric rings to kind of dictate where the placement of the features go. You can kind of do that as well in 3D. It's kind of fun to do. So that's where you can kind of do like the mouth ball here, then you're gonna have another concentric ring right here, which is gonna dictate the sides of the, kind of where the meat of your face goes around to your chin. You can also go from the top of the ear down to the corners of the mouth and get the side planes of the cheek here. Yeah, use it or don't. If I want to, I can also hold down, I'm on the face here, so let's go ahead and split this one off. So I'm going to do another split unmasked points to shoot that down. I'm going to isolate this mouth ball. So if I go into solo mode here, I can just isolate this mouth ball, split unmasked points again, or I'm sorry, split hidden in this case, as I hid part of it. And now I can go through here and I can start chopping this down. I can use like trim, kind of start chopping this down, and then I can make these things work a little bit nicer together. So now we can have those two rings in here. If I hit D, you're going to see I can get a dynamic preview on these things to kind of smooth them out. Of course, before I merge these things down, I'm going to want to convert those to actual subdivisions. But for now, I can just kind of work with them like that. So that'll get us there. Now for this one, again, I can either hold down Control and drag out a copy, or I can just duplicate this off and drag this down, and then we can kind of go here, and now we get our chin in there. So now the chin on a male, I think, is going to be, it's going to be a little wider than the female, so let's say we're making a male. And we can go to the pupils down is going to be corners of the mouth and the chin, and also between the eyeballs, you're going to want to have about one eyeball width, and then from the side of the face to the corner of this one, you're going to have another eyeball width. And this one here, you know, it's going to go pupil to pupil, so we're going to have to add, we're going to duplicate these off, and also you're going to want to make sure that these things are embedded enough. It's kind of sitting underneath this brow ridge. Speaking of the brow, kind of draw on this. So you can use ZBrush to kind of sketch too on your mesh. You can hold down Alt, or you can actually sketch with color. So if we go over here to RGB and turn off the add, turn off light boolean. You can go through here, and if I change my color down to a dark gray, it's going to want to, since I don't have colorize turned on, it's going to make everything dark gray. If I hold down shift and turn colorize on for everything, it's going to turn colorize on. Everything's automatically a white object. So I'm going to go down here to a dark gray. I can just start drawing on my object here. And since we're on one subtool here, it's only going to draw on one. So you can use this for a number of different things. You can go in here and like kind of start figuring out your topology if you want to, or you can just draw goofy faces, or you can kind of start designing where you want stuff to go, or start drawing. And what else can you do? You make your brush size big and kind of just sketch big, and you can also do different colors. So if you don't, we want to do in red first and be like, okay, let's do red for my construction planes here, or my construction lines. So we can go here, and then our nose line would be somewhere in here, and then our eye pupil line is going to be here, and then our mouth line is going to be here, and our chin line is going to be here, and then the mouth is going to go like here, and there's our top lip, and then this is going to be labial fold from the side of the nose, and then this is going to be under the chin, and then our cheekbones are going to be here. And then if you want to draw over that, if you want to knock this back a little bit, go back to your white color, change your RGB intensity down, and then just go up here to color fill and kind of knock that back a bit. And then on top of that, you can crank your RGB intensity up, or, you know, not all the way, maybe 59. Go to blue, and then you can draw more stuff that's blue and differentiate between those. Or you don't even have to use colorize. You can just sketch directly on your model with you know, Z add and Z subtract. So let's go ahead and turn Z add back on. And colorize, again, I'm just turning off these little things. You can also do that under the Poly Paint menu. You can turn colorize on and off. So from the brow, the sides of the brow here, you're going to have, that's where your temple line is going to kind of start. It's here, so we can kind of use H polish to kind of push this back. Okay, so we got this thing here. This is going to go back, and then our cheek line is going to go down to the corners of our mouth. So speaking of our mouth here, we're going to want to ensure that, again, we're going here, and the chin we're going to kind of push out a little bit as well. And the chin's obviously going to go from the jawline. The jaw, again, is going to be halfway down the face. We've enlarged this ear quite a bit, so we're getting kind of goofy proportions, but that's okay. So this is where our jawline is going to be, and the jawline usually right here on this chin line. So you're going to have your mouth line, your chin line, the bottom of your chin. That chin line back is about where your jaw is going to kind of break. So that we're going to leave that here. But that's not where your face stops. You're going to have more stuff down here. Again, your throat. And you have bundles of muscles down here, stuff too. So you want to keep that rounded, unless you're doing a very, very stylized look like that. So anyway, all this stuff, and you know, you always remember you got your clavicles here, and this is still on a draft too. So you've got your rib cage, which is rounded. So you're going to go here, and then you're going to go back to your chromium process on the back, and then that's going to be it's going to step down to your scapula, and then you're going to have a little scapula back here, and we're not going to deal with that today, but you can kind of go in here and dial in your boy, what is that? That is your chest muscle, which is also your pectoralis major. Whew. Need to brush up on my anatomy before I start teaching again at Gemini. So we can kind of dial that in, and we can also go through here with our Damien standard. We can kind of just start pushing that in, and then go through here with our clay brush. So okay. And also there's a couple heads down here for your sternomastoid. It's going to kind of split off. Anyway, I'll use a clay brush here. So once we get this all figured out, you can continue to add more and more and more primitives to kind of get this blocked in. I'm probably going to leave everything, I'm going to go ahead and merge everything down except for the eyeballs. And I also want to kind of change this here too. So I'm going to hit trim dynamic, and we're going to kind of curve this in here. So it's going to step down and then out to the nose here. For the nose itself, let's change that just a bit. I want to go from a little bit thinner up here to a little bit wider at the bottom. And I also want this to protrude a little bit more. We'll have a little bit more fun. Again, we got big ears, we get big nose too. And the wings of the nose, we can kind of dial in, and we can also put some maybe two little rounded things over here, but we can just sculpt those in as well. I think this will be good enough. So let's go ahead, and if I want to keep these things nice and rounded, what I'm going to do is go over here to dynamic and hit apply. For you guys, that'll be under geometry, dynamic, and hit apply. If you want this custom menu, just go to my Gumroad page, my QBrush page, and you can have that. You can just install it if you want. But of course, you can make your own. If you go to my YouTube channel, that'll walk you through that process. In fact, let me go ahead and go here. Go to Intro to ZBrush Part 2, and that'll walk you through all that custom stuff. Okay, let's see. We got any questions? Question from JK. How do you bake your normals and AO? Any specific software? I use all the softwares. If I'm feeling particularly lazy, I'll just do it all in Painter, Substance Painter. If you go to my YouTube channel, I just linked, and you go to my live stream highlights, you'll see a lot of, not a lot of, but you'll see some videos where I go from ZBrush to a game res to auto UVs to throwing it into Painter, baking my maps, and then just using Painter to texture. The good thing about that is once I've textured in Painter, if I ever want to make a new game res with new UVs and just kind of update those and make those better, I can just pass those through Painter again by going project configuration, grabbing my new low res with the new UVs, and it will automatically retexture everything I've already done, and I won't lose anything. So that's incredible. Plus the fact I can also save out a smart material and have it do it that way. So that saves me a lot of time. So I can do previs work without worrying about UVs too much, and then I can update my UVs later to get a slightly nicer result. But it's usually, for me, doing pre-visualization and rapid iteration, there's certainly a diminishing returns when you go into like, well, I'm going to spend a whole day doing super perfect UVs and game res, and you get like a 10% increase in quality. So not my favorite thing to do. Question from King's Litter. Loomis is another great one. Andrew Loomis. I need to go back through his book. It's been a while. I'm slowly going back through books and I'm actually rereading books I've already read, because it's weird what my brain does. There's some information, and this may be true for you guys too, where I'll learn it, but I won't really get it. And so I'll be kind of like, well, it'd make a lot of sense to me. It's kind of dumb. I won't say it's kind of dumb, but it kind of feels like, well, I read it. And Bridgman was like that for me, where I go through and I learned Bridgman like 10, 12 years ago. And it was kind of like, it's okay. I don't really get it. It wasn't until like a couple months ago where I went back through and I was looking at Bridgman. I was like, oh, I get a lot more of this stuff now. And I guess it just comes from experience and just kind of going through other things that make more sense to me, and then coming back around and realizing, oh, now that I've learned this, I can apply it to this, and now Bridgman makes more sense to me, and the Riley abstraction makes more sense to me, or Andrew Loomis makes more sense to me now. So I need to go back through. That's a good one. I'm going to go back through and check out my old Loomis books. Sculpting the statue in Dynamesh, I want to keep it Dynamesh, as I'll be cutting and keying it for printing. No matter how much I increase the resolution, increase the size of the mesh and deformation, the poly count doesn't go any higher. I fiddle with ZBrush, so it has to remesh, and Dynamesh still must give me the same poly count. So sometimes when you Dynamesh, and I'm not saying this is what's going on here, because that could be a weirder problem. If you go in here and you Dynamesh, then you control drag and you Dynamesh, and then you up the resolution, let's see if it'll do it. Or hell, you lower the resolution too and you Dynamesh. It doesn't do anything. See how I'm Dynameshing? It's like, come on, Dynamesh. It's not updating. If you hold down Shift and kind of smooth it a little bit, or just tap it just a little bit and control drag, then it'll update. So it did it. So that could be one thing. Let's up this resolution just a tiny bit. So that could be part of it. Another thing that can sometimes happen, it gets a little bit stubborn. And also I've noticed, and now it's been a while, I seem to remember back when I was at Sony and I was doing some DC characters, there was, not Sony anymore, they're Daybreak. I was doing some DC characters, and it kind of seemed like where the position of the body was in relation to the world center, 000, and how far I got away and how the scale was would also kind of determine the resolution. Like I had wrist guards that weren't Dynameshing at the same resolution as the middle of the body. It got kind of weird that way too. If you can, try merging everything together, and then go down here to deformation, hit unify, and then it's not the greatest solution, and then separate everything out that you need to, and then that'll kind of reset you in ZBrush's interface, the way it likes to kind of be scaled. You can also use Scale Master to kind of, let's see, Z plugin Scale Master, that should come with ZBrush. You can use that to resize the subtool on export, so you don't really lose anything, but it'll just make ZBrush act a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? It'll make ZBrush behave a little bit more like you would expect. You can also download, well, I don't know, for ZBrush for R8, if you Google Dynamesh Master, it'll take you to, I think Joseph Drust made a plugin. I don't know if it works for R8 yet, but there was a Dynamesh Master that he made where instead of like dialing in just a resolution slider here that doesn't really mean anything, and it's also dependent on how, scale of your object, it's one where you can just type in, I want this thing to be 1 million polygons, and then hit enter, and it'll Dynamesh to 1 million polygons. So you can maybe use that. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's a good point, Siegel. If you are hitting a cap where you're not able to, I forgot about that, you can go in here to your mem, deep beep boop beep, there we go, and then there's a max poly per mesh. Mine's maxed out at like 100 million polygons per mesh. So if for some reason when you set up ZBrush made this really small or because your computer couldn't handle it. That might also be it. Interesting. Can you also recommend some books about ZBrush? Books about ZBrush. I haven't read books about ZBrush in a while. I remember reading one about Paul Gabry did. I forget what it's called. Google's Paul Gabry ZBrush book. And I think it's got like a pair of hockey skates with stitches on the front. I use that stitching method all the time. It's a little bit dated, and that's kind of the, not the bad thing, but kind of the interesting thing about technology and reading books about technology. When I read books about anatomy or I read books about design, those are usually more relevant. And then when I go read books about technology, these things change so fast that it's kind of hard to stay up to date. So that's why I usually either do video or the manual, you know, and just kind of go between those two, because everything changes so fast that it's hard to go out and publish a book and then 6 months later a new version comes out, and the book may or may not be relevant. Now, some of the techniques are still relevant. Obviously, I still have some old videos where the techniques are relevant, but books I can't off the top of my head, other than the Paul Gabry book. I think it's the last ZBrush book I read. Siegel says, I was trying to come up with a honeycomb pattern on a skull model. I used Nanomesh, but found a lot of misalignment. Yeah. Whenever you're dealing with Nanomesh and you're trying to do like a perfect honeycomb, sometimes surface noise will be the better option, but then again, you're kind of relegated to just surface noise, which is kind of a little bit limiting too. Man, that's bad. That's weird. King's Letter. I'm really not sure. That's a weird one for me. I wish I had a better answer for you. Cool. So Dynamesh Master does work with 4.8. I haven't tried it. So there's also another plugin I want to bring in. I have it at work. I was doing massive amounts of kit bash stuff, and I wanted to organize it better. So I have a plugin at work called Scene Master. It puts up a little interface. So once I install that at home, we'll go over that too. I think it's a cool thing. Okay, so on your honeycomb pattern here, your Nanomesh was having misalignment. So what I would do in this case would be under my Nanomesh properties, make sure you have, obviously, your alignment aligned to normal to make sure they're all pointing in the same direction, and also under geometry, modify topology, you can also do this, align edge. And then beyond that, you're going to want to you're going to want to fill each polygon to ensure that it goes all the way around, and then make sure your size is 1, and that will make sure that all the bounding box of your honeycomb touches the edge border of your object. If I think about it, let me add that to my streaming topics here, and I'll see if I can go through that. I want to finish my thought here. So we got subtool here. Okay, let's merge these down really quickly. So I'm going to get here. Now, when I merge these down, you're going to notice my Dynamesh properties are set here. If I merge these down, oh, and before I merge these, I wanted to make sure I hit dynamic apply. Now, if you have a bunch of dynamic subdivisions turned on for your objects, one easy way to convert all of those is go to your Z plugin, go to your Z Clean Tool Master, and then hit this dynamic subdivisions to subdivision all, and that'll go through all your subtools and do that. If you don't have this installed, let me walk you through that. Go to Pixelogic Downloads, just Google it, and you got Zbrush Plugins right there. So we can go to Zbrush Plugins, and all the way down at the bottom, you're going to have the employee created plugins, and here's Clean Tool Master. It's got a lot of really cool stuff. Also Z Repeat It, you can do a lot of the same functionality. IMM Extractor is kind of a cool one. That's a kind of a new one. And Matcap Baker, I get a lot of questions about Matcap baking, so I usually point them right here. It's all kind of a cool little thing they can install for baking their matte caps to actual textures. New tool will be created. Yeah, so this one, if you want to extract all of your insert mesh brushes into, it looks like subtools like that, instead of doing it manually, which you can use that to extract there. So anyway, that's where you would install those things. So now that we got that, we're going to go ahead and merge this down with the nose. And we don't want to merge the eyeballs down, so again, take the head, merge down, and now when we Dynamesh this, I'm going to raise that resolution up just a little bit. There we go. And now we can go through here and kind of smooth. You can see we left a little hole back here, so I'm going to take the inflate, just kind of inflate that up. There we go. And now we've got kind of a face working. And I think this face will work just fine. Cool. And he's got little crazy on the striations there on his chest. So, and that's also something I'll tend to do as well, as I'll dig something in and then just kind of smooth it out, just to make sure that the surface forms are changing to my liking. Okay, so again, we can continue to refine. This ear is going to kind of curve in here, and then it's going to curve out here, and it's going to go down. And then we're going to have an earlobe. Some people's earlobes are attached, some people's are detached, some people's have big earlobes, some people have small earlobes, so that's just kind of unique to that person type thing. I'll go ahead and use our clay brush and make this a little less distracting here. Okay. Again, like we were saying, the corners of the eyebrows up, we can kind of just go through here. And that's where the temporal line is going to go. Now we've got the keystone on the eyebrows and the brows here. And we can kind of smooth this out. Now for the wings of the nose, we could put like little spheres in there. We can also just sculpt that out really quickly. So now we've got the bottom plane of the nose, and we got the wings of the nose. And go through here and kind of dial in some nostrils as well. Now we're going to have a little philtrum right here underneath the nose, which is going to go to our lips. And again, these down, you can hold down Alt. We can kind of just dial in where the mouth's going to go. And then above the mouth, you're going to have your upper lip. And then you're going to have your lower lip below the mouth. And then you're going to have, that's going to kind of pooch out. So the upper lips, it might actually be kind of easier to go ahead. Let's go ahead and dial in where that mouth line is here. And then let's go back to our insert mesh brushes. What's a good one to use? You know, it might even be better. Let's go brush curve BC. Let's use curve tube. And instead of having X turned on, if I have X turned on, it's going to kind of double up this. Oh, you know what? Let me grab another one I have. If I do this, it's going to kind of double up here. So I'm going to turn off X symmetry and then draw a curve along here. And then what I can do is go ahead and, again, tap anywhere away from there to get rid of that curve. And we can go split mask points. And now we can do a quick mirror and weld. And now this curve will be separate. So we can kind of just dial this curve in. And this can be our lip shape. And this can be our upper lip. Now the lower lip's going to kind of tuck into, not kind of, it is going to tuck into the upper lip. Oh, also let's make sure we turn on X to go back in X symmetry for both of these objects here. Like so. And if we want to do a lower lip, let me see, wait, oh, turn off LSim when you do a mirror and weld, because that'll mirror and weld across its local symmetry, and it will not exactly what we wanted in that case. So we can go through here. Let's go ahead and inflate this up just a bit. And we can go ahead and Dynamesh this, because it inherited our Dynamesh properties. And for this one, let's go in here with our trim dynamic, and we'll get that upper lip shape here. Now the upper lip, 3 lobes. So you're going to have, you know, you got your philtrum here, and this is going to kind of divot downwards. So I'm going to go in here into my move Acu, which we've talked about before. And we can kind of put in, like, here's the middle lobe, and then here's the outer lobe. And this will kind of go through. I don't know, I keep saying kind of. Stop saying kind of. It's going to do this. It's not kind of. And then there's the upper lip here. If I want to do lower lip, let's go ahead and just duplicate this. Let's go ahead and do also a mirror in the Y. That's under your deformations menu. Whoops, and then I'll go way up there. Let's go ahead and hold down Alt, and we'll recenter that. Now this one is not going to have 3 usually. I mean, you could have you could make a case for like an upper lip being 2 lobes in a kind of a weird way through a midline. But the lower one's usually going to be 2 on each side, and that will be like this. Now the reason why I separated this out is so we can get kind of that tucked look on either side, as well as you can take this lip here and kind of go, okay, I want this to kind of go out and down, and then this lip to kind of be back, and then this will be the line under there, and then now I know that I have to kind of build this out here to kind of give that a little bit more space. Now, also the wings of the nose here, we can go back in here with our Dam standard, kind of push that back in, and now we can kind of push this, cut this back in where it's going to go, kind of go back and around. And again, we're going to cut in pretty harshly first, then we'll smooth that back. Kind of allow us to kind of push our forms around. And I'm also going to Maybe use the inflate brush. Now he's going to look weird. But that's okay. We're just dialing in the base shapes here, the base forms. So we're going to get those right first, and then all the pretty stuff will happen. And I'm not going to say this guy's going to look beautiful or anything, but it's going to look better than, you know, just kind of his block-in forms. And I also I'm working at kind of a higher resolution than I want to. I thought dialing in a higher resolution would help, but it's really kind of not. So I'm going to knock that back just a little bit. Okay, so good enough. I'm going to merge. Well, let's see. Alt tap this one here. All right, so if I merge these down now, and now I can start making major phase changes here. So I can kind of go through here and like how low do I want his jaw, how wide do I want his mouth. And this is also the cool thing about ZBrush is you can make, it kind of looks like a Stonehenge model right now. We can kind of soften those transitions here and then go in here with our Damien standard. We can kind of cut this in here, so the corners of the mouth. And our filtrum here. We'll call this our ugly baby stage. And our chin here. You can hold down Alt and kind of pull out this line as well, and then we'll use again the clay brush, kind of build this up. There we go, a little bit more natural. So again with our move brush here, and it looks like he's got some very sunken cheekbones. We'll kind of build up these cheekbones as well. So when I was dialing in the forms, I kind of ignored the cheekbone and the planes of the face for this side, which I'm regretting now, but we can just again fill those in. Whenever you see an error or something that's a little bit weird, just go through here and just kind of sculpt it in. Again, you can use your H polish brush as well, and you never have to really lose anything because you can always go back in here and kind of dial in, okay, where my cheeks are going to go, build this out or cut this back. We can soften this transition here, and then for the eyelids, that's going to be another major part here. So if we take this here and let's say center these things in, we'll kind of push these things back a little bit. So now we got to kind of do eyelids. So let's take this eyeball, we're going to duplicate this off, and for the top part, let's do a trim curve. What the trim curve is going to do is going to go ahead and slice this bottom part out and fill the hole. Now if I did a clip, it could probably do the same thing. I just wanted a little sharper transition. I'll push those back here, so you can use either one in this case. We'll go ahead and do a trim curve here, and then we'll take this eyeball here and we'll do another trim curve. Oops. Wait, you didn't duplicate that. Duplicate it off, or did I? 1, 2, there we go. We'll duplicate this off, and now we've got a bottom lid. Now for these things here, I can go and inflate them a bit. That's under your deformation menu. And kind of position these around. And again, we're just dealing with primitives here to make it a little bit easier. And if you want to here, you can probably leave those separate for a little while, and you can go through here and you can kind of inflate where this orbit's going to kind of pull around, the socket's going to pull around the shape of that eyelid. And then in here, it'll kind of push in, something like this. And then this is going to kind of pull up maybe, so we'll trim this back just a little bit. Let's go through here. So that's where the brow ridge is going to go, and then the orbit's going to kind of pull around the shape of the eye. And then you've got the brow here. And you can also make that quite a bit bigger if you want to, depending on your model here. You can either have almost no brow ridge, you can have a really heavy caveman brow ridge, and that kind of dictate how your model ends up looking. So anyway, go in here, use your standard brush, kind of pull this in a little bit here. And dynamic. And then, okay, so that'll work. Let's go ahead and do a crease PG. That's going to crease those two polygroups. So when I went through here and I have a top polygroup and a bottom polygroup, now I can hit D to get a dynamic subdiv and kind of smooth these things out. There we go. And we can go ahead and just hit apply for both of these. Let's give me a little bit more resolution to work with. Again, it doesn't have to be beautiful because we're going to Dynamesh this thing together anyway. All right, and then while we have this here, we can say, okay, so this thing here, if you want to give them some big eye bags, you can work that in here too, but you're going to probably want to take both of these into account, the upper and lower lids here. So let's go ahead and merge these things down. So the eyeball we'll leave alone. I'm going to go hold down shift and do this bottom arrow to shoot that all the way to the bottom. I'm going to merge these down. Now on this one, I think I'm going to up the resolution just a bit. I think it's ready. There we go. And now when we're doing the lower lids here, we can do maybe a little bit more eye bags. Kind of dial that in just a little bit. And you don't have to, obviously. You can make whatever character you want. Kind of the decision you have to make. And this looks like it's a little bit much on this side here. So we can kind of ease that transition as well. There we go. And then once you get this all figured out, if you go way back, actually, I should probably link you guys to that too. So I've been doing this stream for a while. If you go to the Pavlovich workshop on the Pixelogic page, here's my playlist. If you go all the way down to the bottom, we kind of do this. We've done this before, this kind of thing. We did a whole lady and then remeshed her and stuff. So you can go through here and you can pop in a mouth bag, which I guess we could do. Cool. Anything else? Any design books, any recommendations? What have I been doing for design? I've been doing a lot of anatomy stuff recently. Design specific. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I remember the stuff that sticks in my head the most is probably Feng Zhu's old design videos from Nomon. For some reason, maybe it's because I watched them at the right point or I was paying attention. Those kind of seem to have stuck with me a little bit, but I need to go back, and that'll be what I'm doing next. Is after I'm done kind of doing my anatomy kick, I'll go back through and relearn everything I learned about design. And I'm sure when I learn things, I only absorb so much, so I have to go back and relearn a lot. And it's also good kind of practice for me too, because when I go back and relearn, I always pick up something new that I just didn't get the first time, or I got it but it didn't stick, that kind of thing. Now at this point, we can go ahead and do like, okay, I want to give him, this kind of look, or a big, strong jaw, depending on the kind of character you want to make. Or if you want to do duplicates, you can just duplicate this face off, or you can save a iterative file and start doing all sorts of cool stuff. So again, I don't know what kind of character we want to make here. This is where you can start having a little bit of fun. Not that we weren't having fun before, but did I like that lower jaw? Yeah, I kind of did like that. And there are the rules where it's like, okay, at the bottom of the chin goes where the jaw curves in. If you're doing something stylized and you want to break those rules, just be aware that you're breaking it and why you're breaking it and the kind of look that you're trying to go for when you do break it. I'm not going to say there's a hard and fast rule that you should always follow. And also, if you want to go from, like, he's kind of a lean guy, but if you want to, just go in here with your inflate brush and just, no, he's not so lean. So it's really easy to kind of get a different look like that as well. That'll work. And let's go in here with our our Damien standard here. And also, since if we're doing character design, maybe let's start dialing in a little bit more. And again, we're just kind of having some fun here, so it's not like I want to go and be like, okay, let's talk about how to do perfect production work and a finished character, because I don't think we're there yet. We really have just started exploring. So at this point, we still want to keep it nice here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exaggerate maybe where this goes down, and I can also go in here with my move acu or my move brush and kind of go through here and kind of, again, I don't know why I keep saying kind of, get that kind of look here. Not digging that so much. You can also use your undo history slider. Let's move his mouth down. Let's also go with this Damien standard here. And we're going to make his face that's a little bit more fleshy and kind of give him a grin. So he's kind of, you know, without any hair and stuff, he's kind of resembling like a Varys type character. But that doesn't mean we have to keep it like that, or, you know, if that's what you're going for, by all means, feel free. But what we can do is a couple different things. So we can take this here, we can duplicate this off, and you can go to inflate of, say, -1, and that'll kind of just push him underneath here. So now I can go in with my clay buildup brush. I'm going to turn off X symmetry. Now I can go through here and start adding a little bit of look like this, or you can go through here and add I like that. Now if you do, you can turn on symmetry back on, and you can go through here and be like, give him the old Hulkamania mustache. Yeah, brother. Not sure if that's what I want, but you can also go through here, give him a little beard. And this is just an easy way to kind of start doing look development on what kind of character you want. You can give him the old George Lucas here, or a little goatee, and just see if anything kind of speaks to you. Give him the burnt brow. Or variations of all of the above. Give him a mohawk. Again, even doing simple stuff like that just completely changes the character. He went from Varys to like an old punk rocker. Mutton chops. I kind of like that. All right. And then I could go to like maybe a recessed hairline, so we can go through here and be like, okay, this comes back through here. Just kind of give him a, just got back from Italy. This kind of gives him a Roman look. So I went through the Vatican, and they had some really, really good museums there with tons and tons of sculpture. And I got lots of pictures. That was kind of fun. Kind of give him a weird little mutton chop thing going here. That'll work. Okay, now for his eyebrows, this is going to dictate a lot of the character too. You know, you can just do plain eyebrows. You can arch them in a little bit, or arch them up and down. Give him the old Jack Nicholson. If you give him nice soft eyebrows, that just gives him a friendlier look. Through here, so you can change a lot about your character just through simple stuff like the eyebrows. Same thing with the mustache. You know, this turns him into more of a Civil War guy. As soon as I do that, he's either a Civil War guy or a hipster, Austin hipster that sells craft beer. And we can see, do something like this, or just normal. You can say normal, I guess, but those type of eyebrows. Once you have that, you can go ahead and split these things off. Or, you know what, this can just be previs. If you want to do more refined, nicer eyebrows or more stylistic eyebrows, you can go BTO, breast topology, and go through here and just start adding this geo. I'm just going to overlap these lines here and here. So now we've got geometry. I think that'll work. So if I tap off, that'll give us geo here. Let's go ahead and do a split masked points here. And now this here, again, it's just sketches, right? If I go into solo mode. So if I turn those eyebrows off, you're going to see I don't need those anymore. So I can go through here and I can hold on the clay brush and just knock them back. So now my eyebrows are sitting right on top of here. I can hit D to go into dynamic subdivisions. And I can also go through here with my crease tolerance. It's under your crease menu. And kind of crease those out so I can keep my dynamic subdivisions on. And now I have much less geometry to work with, and I can kind of dial in a little bit more exact look for my eyebrows. Now, you can see it's kind of sharp along the edges here, so let's go ahead and fix that with dynamic. So in here, I'm going to go to the crease options. Let's drop our crease level down to 1, our smooth subdivisions up to 3. And now when I do that, actually let's do crease level of 2. Now it's going to crease up twice and then uncrease all, so that'll give me a little softer fall off on those edges. Not really necessary while you're doing just kind of dialing the stuff in, but why not? Ah, okay. Little weird eyebrows. Now same thing for the beard. If I want to keep sculpting on this beard, what I can do is I can just keep sculpting on it as is, or I can go through here with my mask pen. And there's a sculpt out or mask out where this beard actually is on my character here. So I don't want a whole bunch of geometry just sitting under there. Just kind of do a little bookkeeping here. So we're going to solo mode. You see, okay, this is what I'm getting. I'll hit Control W to give me a polygroup where that hair is. Control Shift to isolate it. And now we're going to do a split. No, let's do a delete hidden. Geometry modified topology, delete hidden. And now if I do a close holes, hopefully that doesn't crash ZBrush. Basically what it's going to do is fill in these inner areas here, and I'm going to kind of squish those in, and that'll just give me, instead of having a head underneath, it's going to give me just kind of an area where I can work a little bit more concisely with just the hair. There it goes. Align edge, align to nearest edge, give me the best results, but still misaligned. Huh. For the honeycomb stuff we were talking about earlier, if I show you that again. Where's that link at? Beep, boop, beep. There's my link. Sorry, my brain is... There it is. So for this honeycombed issue, the... there we go. I'm not sure. Jarmaid says your sculpts are always nice and smooth. Mine are all bumpy and ugly, and he does have Dumbo ears. Basically, what that is, I think. Man, it's really having a hard time with this mesh here. What I've found is when my meshes start getting kind of bumpy and ugly, it's because I'm working at too high resolution. So if I duplicate this off here and I crank my resolution up to, like, say 456, and now he's 747,000 polygons, he's going to have a much smoother result. So if I go through here and kind of smooth this out, he's going to have a nice smooth result, and he's going to be smooth, and his forms are going to be okay because that's what I dialed in at the lower resolution. And now I can go through here and start, you know, carving in a little bit nicer detail in here. But if I go to an area that isn't as refined, so it's like, okay, I want to sculpt in these ears, so I go in here and kind of use my standard brush to kind of carve this in. It looks like I need to go way in here to his ear hole here. If I start making major changes here, or I go too early in the form refine stage, if I was like, okay, smooth all this out, it's like, okay, let's start dialing in my meshes. I have to be a lot more careful, you know, how I go through here. And so see how, like, on the lips here, it's starting to get a little lumpy. And then if I go in here with my clay brush, because the resolution is so high, I'm automatically just getting lumpy results. You can turn on smooth stronger, that'll help you a little bit, but a lot of times for me, it's working with as low a resolution as you can get away with while you're building up your forms. And then when you subdivide or you raise your resolution, your forms just smooth nicer. They smooth into the forms that you wanted, as opposed to sitting here trying to fight all of these polygons to get your forms kind of built in. That, for me anyways, this may not be what your particular issue is, but for me, when I start getting lumpy meshes, see, now he's starting to look like Ted Cruz, where he just kind of looks like a lumpy mess. It's like, wow, you know, I smooth this out, and you know, now I got to deal with all this. My resolution's too high. Even holding down Shift to smooth stronger, I have to sit here and really smooth the hell out of this just to get the forms that I want. because when I'm dialing them in, it's with the clay brush, you know, and it's really kind of hard to build up forms with all of this resolution and then smooth it back down. So my advice would be to work at a much lower resolution. I mean, this guy's almost like 130,000, which is almost nothing in ZBrush. Like you can see, these are how big the polygons are. But now, you know, once I get it dialed in, then when I start subdividing all of these forms, they're just going to smooth nicer because these forms are already pretty smooth. You know, if I go through here, I can go, and now when I start building out these forms, I can like clay build up, and then when I smooth, nice and smooth. It's just a much more workable mesh here. Matchmaker worked on the front of the surfaces, but totally failed on the side surfaces. Yeah, Matchmaker is only going to be camera dependent. So, Matchmaker brush is. If we go to, let's see. Let's grab a cylinder here. Oops. Let's go ahead and do split unmask points here. Now if I got this little dial right here, let's go ahead and do a crease tolerance, dynamic, apply, and we'll go ahead and Dynamesh this as well so we get a little bit more resolution. So if I want to match this, you know, let's make it more obvious. Let's go here. So if I want to match this perfectly to his head, I'm going to position it so it's going to go straight back, and then I go here and I go to BMM. That's my Matchmaker brush. This is for anybody who's never used a Matchmaker brush. I want to position my camera so when I pull across my object, it pulls back to where the object underneath it is, which should be the head here. Let's see, we just hide this. There's something weird going on with the Matchmaker brush. Let me see if I go from the front. Yeah, so if I go from the front here, it's going to want to push back to the head, and it matches the head, but then it's going to skew here. So you want to make sure that your camera's positioned. But again, because if your object is in the round and you use your Matchmaker brush, it's not going to matchmake from the side. Now, an alternative to the Matchmaker brush could be project all, as well as, I'm not sure. You can also, if they're close but not perfect, you can go in here to geometry, modify topology, weld, and just crank that weld distance up and see if you can't get it to weld, maybe. So we got this hair here. I'm going to go ahead and Dynamesh this, and now we can continue to use our clay buildup at this resolution, and then once we're happy with this, we can start refining this as well. So for hair and beards and stuff, if you're doing short beard, it can just be short strokes here. For shorter hair, they can just be short strokes defining, you know, where your hair is going to go. And you could do curve brushes for hair. We've done hair stuff too. If you go back through that link I sent you, the Pavlovich workshop, I think if you get down around episode number 4 or no, episode number 6, we go through a lot of different hair creation techniques for eyebrows and eyelashes and stuff like that. But for like just kind of sculptural, kind of sculptural hair, I guess. You can go through here and just use your clay buildup brush. You can also use your standard brush. And this one, I'm going to go hit L, turn on my lazy radius and crank that up. That's under your stroke menu. And you can start going through here and breaking up how these forms kind of turn and wrap around each other here, kind of get a more interesting look. And let's go ahead and crank up our Z intensity just a bit as well. And use our clay buildup here. And on the back of the head, you probably don't want to have symmetry turned on, but we can fix that later. Now we got these kind of shapes in here. You can go in with your, let's go ahead and Dynamesh this together. Oh, you know what I should have said? If you're working on smooth or thinner meshes, you're going to want to have backface masking turned on. So if I go in my clay buildup brush, and we have our brush options here, Go to auto masking, turn on backface. So now when I go through here, I can fill these back in. Now that I have backface turned on, you'll get those little chewed up little edges here. Just make sure for all your brushes you have backface on. You can also make a macro that'll turn on backface masking for all the brushes that you need that for. I need to remake that. You can run that macro at startup. I seem to have some issues with that, so I usually just make a button that'll just run it whenever I press it. There we go. So fix that. And now we can go through here. And again, I'm going to turn my standard brush back on. We'll go ahead and turn lazy mouse off because I just want to go through here and kind of like knock these back. We can also go in here with our snake hook brush and kind of pull out, you know, where these things might kind of break the silhouette a little bit. And one thing we use the matchmaker brush, speaking of the matchmaker brush, we use that on when we're doing the armor detailing, which will be episode 16. You can see this guy's helmet here. There's another way to kind of get, you can do detail flat, and then you can use a matchmaker brush to kind of pull, you know, this lion onto that surface is using the matchmaker brush. For example, speaking of. And again, going back in here with our standard brush, we can kind of loop-de-loop these things around. Again, just kind of coiling the hair here, and then you can go through here. Let's raise our resolution just a tiny bit. And then you can go through here with your Damien standard brush. You can hold down Alt, and you can kind of pull up these edges here, and then you can kind of push down. And I'm not going to do this for the entire hair, but this is generally how I'd go to do like a stylized hair sculpt to make it look like it's kind of cartoony or carved. Is kind of building my helixes like this. And again, this is another really good example of if you don't want super blobby meshes, just work at a really low resolution so that you can smooth it all out here. And you can even go in here with your Damien, like I was saying, your Damien standard brush, and then go in here with your H polish and your trim dynamic maybe, and just get really nice smooth results. If I was working too high resolution, it would be really difficult to pull these in. Of course, probably also what I would do, and maybe in favor of this, because I really don't like dealing with all of these meshes kind of put together, that's where we would go into our brush. Hairbrush. Did I even make a hairbrush? We can make a quick hairbrush. Let's just do that real quick. Oops. In lieu of doing all of this, you could also use just clay strands. I'll make a really quick hairbrush here. Let's do, doesn't matter. Grab a ring, because what we're going to do is go to Make Polymesh 3D, and then we're going to go down here to Initialize, and we're going to do Q-Cube. Now on this Q-Cube, I'm going to rotate this thing 45 degrees so we get the corner out like this, and then we're going to scale it up. And now I'm going to take this one and we're going to bevel edge loop complete with my Z modeler brush. We'll get 3 equal parts here, and then for this top part, we'll go Control W, bottom part, Control W. Now we've got 3 polygroups here. Let's go ahead and scale this in. There we go. So now this can be my tubes brush that I want to make. So I'm going to hit B, create insert mesh new, and then I'm going to go over here to stroke. And we'll do curve mode on under, whoops, sorry, my Wacom's not, get to the edge here and that's where it stops. Brush, modifiers, no, not modifiers, yeah, modifiers. Weld points, curve res up. And now we've got this kind of brush look going. And we can flatten that out by using Z intensity. If we drop our Z intensity down, it's going to flatten out. Or if we want to over crank that, we can go down here to our strength multiplier and crank that up. And that'll kind of pop that out even more. As well as, what else would I might? Oh yeah, let's go to back to our stroke menu. Open up our curve modifiers. I'm going to do intensity and size. I forget which. Sorry. And then I'm going to go big to kind of small. There we go. And let's do kind of smaller, kind of to a point. So now when I drag this out, we'll get that look. Of course, if we want to say, let's drop that the intensity down just a bit. There we go. If we want to save this brush, which I kind of do, let's go to brush, save as. And if you want to have this as your icon or whatever, you can hold down brush, select icon, hold down alt, and now I can save as. Now if I want to have this available to me, I'm going to go ZBrush 408, program files, please select 408, ZBrushes. Do I have a hair element? Nope. New folder. Hair. We'll call this edge noodle. Okay, so also before we do that, you could put creasing in here along these edges that you want to, or you can build in control loops. So when you drag this out, you'll get, when you hit D to go into dynamic, because right now if I hit D, it's going to kind of soften to this kind of look. So if you wanted to put in control loops on your original mesh here, you know what, we can just go ahead and do that. We'll just append it. So let's say we want one that just kind of softens into a soft noodle. And then on this one, what we want to do is, let's go ahead and do insert single edge loop. Let's get rid of these ones. And now I'm going to go insert single edge loop. We're going to build in a few control loops here. And for the points, do I need to? Let's hit D. I think the points I won't really need to. Yeah, I'll leave them. But now you can see when I hit D, they maintain their edges a little bit better. Or if you wanted to, you could just do crease. So if we go down here to our crease menu in geometry, you can just crease those edges, and then when you hit D, it'll keep them really crispy. Kind of up to you. But if we want to do a variant of that one, if we go down here to our brush edge noodle, we'll take this one, we'll do brush, create insert mesh, append. Oops. Okay. And now I've got this one. So now this one is going to drag out that version. If I go to this one, it's going to drag out this version with the edge. It doesn't maintain all of your properties, so you are going to have to go back in through here and go back down to your brush menu and say weld points, curve res of 3, and the intensity, it seemed like it kept that. So now we've got two different versions of that brush here, and it's kind of sitting on top of the mesh here. If you want that to sink in more, you can always go down here to your brush depth and kind of sink this in more, but I'll just go ahead and leave it as it is for now. And now that we've done that, we'll go ahead and do a brush, select icon, save as, edge noodle. We'll just update that. Now, if I ever want to grab edge noodle again when I restart ZBrush, I'm going to hit the comma key, go to brush, go to hair, and then I've got my edge noodle in there. So we'll go back to our guy. And instead of dealing with all this and trying to get this to work correctly, you can use this as a guide, and now you can just drop in your edge noodles. So we're going to go thick to thin here, and I'll probably start smaller just to get more curve resolution out of this, like so. And then I can go through here and change my brush size. Then we can tap off and scoot this in. We can do split, unmask points here, and now we can just kind of control, drag up, and wrap this one around here. And this gives you just a little bit more control. It might be a little bit more time consuming, but the results are going to be much more, like I said, controlled and nicer. If I hit D on this one, does this one have our built-in edge loops? Yeah, this one has our edges built in, so this is going to give us a little bit of a crispier look. So you can kind of go through and intertwine these things as you drag them on. You're probably going to want to start from the bottom, from the back, and then go forward so that they're overlapping as you go forward. And then as you kind of twist these in, you get a very, very nice result. Anyways, Damien standard here. Sorry, I'm just having fun this morning. Again, just kind of getting back in the flow of things from being gone for a while. Reacclimating myself to computers. All right. Hey, Yarv, thanks for showing up. This is the new computer. For you hardware junkies out there, we can talk about that for a second. Let's go ahead and go to this PC here. Beep, boop, beep. What am I looking for? Properties. So I'm doing a Keyshot quick start here where I go a little bit more into hardware. But we're doing the AMD Ryzen Threadripper, which for ZBrush and Keyshot is great. They're both pretty processor intense programs. It's running at 3.4 gigahertz. You can overclock it to 4. It's got liquid cooling in it. It's got 128 gig of RAM. It's got, I don't have my little cheat sheet here. Oh, yes, I do. More specifics. It is the cooler is closed loop, main gear Epic 240 cooler. The memory is the 128 gig of the HyperX Predator DDR4 3000 quad channel RAM. It's got the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1080 Ti 11 gig GDDR5 with G-Sync. It's got, what else? It's the Asus X399 Zenith Extreme. It's got LED lights on it. It's got a Samsung 850 EVO 2 terabyte C drive. Beep, boop, beep. All that stuff. And of course, you know, you hit Control-Shift-Escape. That'll pop up your task manager and you can see. So when we go into Keyshot and stuff, when I was doing my Keyshot stuff, these things are really cranking, and give me some really nice renders in Keyshot, which is, again, a very CPU-intensive renderer. Do you really need that much RAM in a system? Do you really need less RAM in a system? I've never run into a situation where I wanted less RAM. But in order to, I mean, yeah, RAM can definitely be overkill. If you're just playing like video games on your machine, then and you're not doing a lot of multitasking, then probably 8 gig is fine. 16 gig is pushing it. For me, when you start doing photogrammetry and rendering, those can really start eating away at your RAM if you're doing like V-Ray and Arnold with really intense scenes. It really speeds up the process. You really want to get more RAM in there. It's photogrammetry too, I think, is pretty RAM intensive. We're going to be getting into photogrammetry more. Again, I'm still getting my machine set up. The Italy trip kind of threw me a bit as far as my timeline and my schedules. So I'm getting kind of reset back up, and I'm getting, oh, whoa, back of his ear's kind of busted here. Let's go ahead and go into our clay brush here. And for the clay brush, again, if the ear is a little bit thin, I'm going to go in my back face here, hold down Shift, turn on back face masking for these brushes here. So when I go in with my clay brush, it's not going to go through his ear here and destroy all that, which I think it did when I was smoothing. There we go. Now again, his ears are super intense, obviously, as designed. But even at this point, you know, I'm still in the sketch mode, so I can, there's a couple different ways I can remedy this. I can either go through here and try and like mask his ear out like we did before when we made him super large. I can go through here and mask these out. Control click to invert that mask, and then Control tap to kind of blur that mask out. And then you can also do that in the masking menu. You can go in there and blur it, but that's a shortcut. Make sure LSIM is turned on, hit W, position these so that they're right. You can go to Unmatched Mesh Center as well and kind of position these where you want. And now you can kind of, you know, do your ear shrinking changes like this. Make them a little bit more normal. You could also pop those ears off as its own insert mesh brush and then slice them and then reposition those ears that way. But I guess that'll work. That'll work fine. A little less intense here. And we probably also want to go through here with our Damien standard and really dig this in. There we go. Now, if I was to go through and make this hair really nice, we'd probably get a much better Keyshot render. Keyshot can be a semi-unforgiving. It's a product renderer. It's not really a product renderer. I mean, it is a product renderer, and it works nice, works very nice with very well-maintained meshes. But there are tricks you can do if you want to go in there and make things a little bit nicer. You can smooth your normals within Keyshot, which kind of helps if you don't want to subdivide the hell out of your meshes, which is something we can go over as well. Anyway, we made a character. We warmed up. Good enough. Having some fun. And then go through here and we can hit D to dynamically subdivide those eyeballs. And at this point, all it is just refining and then Z-remeshing to rebuild. And if you want to make this guy realistic, you can go through here and just give him more surface detail. You can make him hyper realistic with these proportions, and that can sometimes be an interesting look where you take somebody with proportions like this and then you give them super hyper real pore treatment. That's kind of fun to do sometimes too as well. Give him a mouth bag, all that good stuff. Oh yeah, it is an SSD. Now, what I want to do is get a M1 SSD. I have that on my laptop. It's a little bit faster, I think. So as I'm kind of juggling my hardware stuff, I might swap that out. But yeah, and a lot, yeah. Photoshop too. Sometimes you can offset some of that stuff to the GPU, but a lot of things in programs use a CPU. Now that doesn't mean they're going to use all the cores. Sometimes there's some programs that only utilize a few cores, or I can't distribute too many cores. I think cloth simulation is one of those things where it can only really utilize a smaller number of cores, just because, you know, you're doing cloth simulations, I guess, and it can only, you can't really distribute those kind of simulations, but some simulations you can distribute, or on rendering, for sure, you can almost always distribute. That's just a really easy one, is rendering distribution to multiple cores. Okay, so we've got this here. Let's talk about that honeycomb thing. I'm going to save this guy. We can go back to him. Streaming, what's his name? Chops McGee. All right, now if we were going to do, oh man, this is probably going to throw me for a loop. Hex patterns. Okay, I'll give it a shot. This might be something I have to sit down with. Hex patterns always kind of throw me. I'm not much of a pattern guy. I would usually leave this up to my material guys to do. But let's see if I can do this. Let's say we want to go to a cylinder 3D, go into edit mode, go into initialize, and let's say these H divides, we can go all the way down to 3. If we want to do 5, that'll give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, we want to do 6, 6, 6. There we go. So we'll get that shape. That's what shape we're looking for, and then V divides will do this. Now I'm going to make Polymesh 3D. Oops. Scale this down, and now we've got our hex shape. From here we can go through here with this edge. We'll do polygroup, polyloop, and now we'll do QMesh, polygroup all. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this middle polygroup here. We'll go ahead and delete hidden, and we'll do QMesh, polygroup all, and now we've got a hex shape. Okay, good night everybody. But now we have to tile this and make it square as well. So if we go here, oh boy, let's do, if we do an array mesh up, we can offset this up and over 1. Kind of reminds me when you're doing the bug eye. It's almost like, it might be easier. We know we can try this. Okay, so we got the shape here. Let's go to worst case scenario, our sphere. Make Polymesh 3D. Let's see if this will even work. Let's see, geometry, let's see, reconstruct. Oh, we can't reconstruct that down? All right, fine. Go back to our sphere. We'll go to initialize, and I guess I can't reconstruct because those polarized ends, those are triangles. So I'm gonna do 16 tab, 16 tab. Oops. Nope, not coverage. What am I doing? There, I want these ones. 16 tab, 16, enter. There we go. So a simplified sphere here. We'll go to make Polymesh 3D. And now if I want to put the honeycombs on this, actually let's divide this one more. Let's go to Nanomesh. So we're going to go to my ZModeler brush. We're going to hit M. We're going to grab our honeycomb pattern here. And for this one, let's do select lasso, and we'll do, actually we don't have to do select lasso. We'll just go over this edge. We'll do polygroup, polyloop, tap alt. We'll do every other one. And we'll just do that much. Now if I take this one, and we go to QMesh, we don't want to QMesh, we want to insert Nanomesh with our new mesh here. We're going to insert it on polygroup all, insert this, and we're going to say size of 1, fill, rotate, XYZ rotation, so we'll rotate this so that it's -90. like this. And let's also change the height. No, length, yes. Oh, also, let's do align to normal. Size 1, fill width. This might be a good one. You know what? This is a better one for ask Paul Gabriel or Joseph Drust. I think those guys would probably be a little bit better than me at trying to figure out hex patterns. This is going to be like pulling teeth for me. So, also fill, size 1, width. Let's do fit. We want to do fill because that goes to the edges of each polygon, but then it looks like the offset. Oh, it was the offset is off. There we go. So now those are all filling one polygroup here. You're gonna have to mess with these damn rotations. So what you could do, maybe, is go through here and do one like this. Can we do like a 2.1? No. Something like this, and you could actually leave those edges open because you could weld those together. And then you can go up here to this one. You can go insert Nanomesh polygroup all, and then we can go to index 1 copy, paste, and now on this one we can offset like, is that 1? Like this. Change the Z rotation here. Yeah, Z rotation just really wants to be a pain in my butt. And then you can kind of play with these sizes maybe. Not really. Maybe the height. So we do like 1.25. Kind of mush those together. Now, obviously, that's not going to take care of your welding problem. And what you could do is, you know, okay, now that we have this, okay, this will make it a little bit easier in my brain to go ahead and do a tiling one. So now that we've discussed that, let's say we did that on purpose. Now that we have that under our belts, let's go to this polyplane here. We're going to go make Polymesh 3D, and we're going to hit reconstruct. So now let's say I wanted to do a tiling honeycomb pattern. Here, we're going to delete higher. So we're going to take this honeycomb pattern here. We're going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to take this here. We're going to polygroup. We're going to insert Nanomesh polygroup all. We'll drag this out. Actually, we'll go to geometry, modify topology, align edge. And then we'll go over here to what am I doing? Geometry, Nanomesh. So Z rotation, let's say 0, Y rotation, I'm looking for X rotation. There we go. 90 degrees. And then we want to fill as size of 1, and we want to length with height offset Z offset of 0. So that'll go ahead and make those. And then if I insert Nanomesh on this one, I can go index, copy, paste, and now this one we want to offset. Oh, you know what I would use? Okay, check this out. Under Z plugin, I forgot about this. You have nanotile textures. Use this to create your seamless mesh using Nanomesh. This will take some of the pain out of this, but we can also do it manually. So we want to do Y offset. That'll give you a wrap. That'll work, I think. Anyways, so now we can take a middle center portion out of this. Actually, that's not going to work either, because now these things aren't meeting up here. Boy, I hate hex patterns. I really do. I don't know. Like I said, this is going to be something I'd have to really sit down, because I really hate tiling patterns. This is why I'm not an environment artist or a material artist. Yeah, micro mesh. If you can get them close, try that geometry weld option and see if that'll put that in there. Oh yeah, Zbrush Summit. Forgot about that. Yeah, I just got back, so so I think October Zbrush Summit is coming up soon. Cool. Oh. Oh, right. Okay, so let's see. If we... Good call. K press add 15. Let's see. Rotate. So Z rotation will do 90 degrees. Nope, 45 degrees. You know, and I can also do that on the object itself. So we go back here to this object here, and we want to rotate it, not 90 degrees, 30 degrees here. So now let's go back to our mesh here. And let's go to, that'll just make it a little bit easier. So we'll go to inventory, we'll do delete one. So now we drag this one out. Z rotation 0, X rotation 90, fill, purported width 1. We don't want any offset in the Z. Oh my god, maybe not. It's kind of like skewing it. Is that something wrong with my brain? Oh, you know what we did? Stupid. So it's keeping that in memory. So now I gotta go here, M, grab this new one. There we go. I am still wondering why. Oh, Z rotation is set at 1. There we go. So now fill, size 1, width, and we also want to do our geometry modify topology. Align to edge. Now Y. Fill, size of 1. It's not really filling it though, is it? I guess it's filling the bounding box of one side, so I'm going to have to fudge it with this side here. Okay, so whatever. We've got that here, so now we can drag on the Nanomesh on this one. We'll go here, copy, paste, and then offset this one. And then you'd have to scale these things up. But if we do fill, it's not going to work. Yeah, well, if I could make a tiling hex pattern, that would be part 1. And then cutting the square out, I would probably use the Nanomesh tile thing. And then it would be the same thing as we did on the sphere, only you wouldn't have to offset them. Ideally, they would match up in the corners. I don't know why it wouldn't match up in the corners, especially if it is cut to a square. So I would guess you'd have to ensure that, for example, I guess I'll just fudge this so we can kind of talk a little bit more about that for now. Let's see, width. .35, and let's go to 1.35. So basically you'd have this pattern here, go to inventory, one to mesh, and then we can get rid of this here, go to delete hidden, and then you'd want to make sure that you just have a square, a perfect square. So let's go over here. So with our standard, our stroke here, let's do square center, and let's go from the middle out, just like Silicon Valley, and we would want to, you know, get a perfect square out of this texture here, so that would repeat perfectly. Of course, this thing isn't really set up to be a perfect square, so we might have to kind of fudge that a little bit. And then we can also go through here. We could even try trim curve, maybe. We can go like here, trim those off. Yeah, so we move this over, it would duplicate. So this would be extraneous. And I'm wondering if part of the problem is, because if I get rid of these here, it might be throwing off the bounding box. Maybe that's why it's having an issue. So if I go here to delete hidden, and I move this over, now these will match up. This is extraneous over here. So now, okay, I move this over one, and it matches up. No, that wouldn't really throw the bounding box off. If I move this up, these bottom pieces are extraneous here. And this is extraneous. So this will tile up like so, and it'll also tile over, and it'll also tile over, and it'll also tile down. So if I got this piece here, obviously you'd want to build this so that it wasn't crappy. But if we have this here, let's go back to our sphere. Let's do again. Whoops. Crashing on the save. Awesome. Let's hit cancel. So anyway, you would take that back on your sphere, lower resolution, do the fit, fill, and if the edges aren't matching up perfectly, if you get them close, hopefully you could do a weld. And also, maybe instead of doing, sorry, wait for this to load up. Actually, you know what else I need? I need to know where to put this. Sorry guys, bear with me. There I am. Also, instead of doing thickness like you have here, instead of doing this type of thickness, just do single-sided, weld it, and then you can get the thickness when you do like Z-modeler or an extraction or something like that. That might make it a little bit easier to work with. Something like that, maybe. Oh, that is one thing I wanted to talk about. Hold on just a second, let me position this a little bit better. Speaking of, you know, I guess we can just model that. I do want to talk about the smoothest in KeyShot. Cool. So, yeah, 30 degrees rotation is what I was looking for there. Weld after Nanomesh to one mesh. Yeah, so exactly. So you would do Nanomesh, one to mesh. Like they would be close, but maybe not perfect. And then you would go to geometry, modify topology. I think it's under modify topology. Weld, crank that weld distance up, and that'll kind of start welding those points together. And then once you have a nice welded net, then you could go through and like Z-modeler it out to give you thickness. It'll just give you one less thing to kind of weld if you have thickness, and then you can always do your thickness later. But let's also, one thing I was doing that you guys might find interesting is let's start with, let's model something. I modeled a coffee mug already for my demo, so let's model a beer mug. So I'm going to go into, you know what, this will work fine. Make Polymesh 3D. And if we want to do a beer mug, I'm going to take this cap off here. We're going to go ahead and delete hidden. Kind of scale this up. Actually, let's Google beer mug. There we go. We'll do something a little bit like it's supposed to look. Okay, so we got this thing here. I'm going to go down here to display properties. We're going to turn on double so we can kind of see inside. So we've got this outer surface here. Now we want to make an inner surface. So I'm going to go through here. We're going to do QMesh, polygroup all, and I'm going to QMesh this in. This will give us our inner surface. Now when I QMesh in and I turn off double, you're going to see that the faces are flipped, but it's also nice because you can also see how thick the glass is going to be. So it's going to be fairly thick glass. If I don't want it that thick, I can just take this QMesh polygroup all and hold down shift, but then it's going to curve out that bottom. So you can also just kind of re-push this back in, make it maybe not quite so thick. Now when I turn off double and we see flip, if I want to make this bottom kind of be thicker than the overall thickness, I can just use my Q mesh brush here. I'm going to go flip to flip my normals. I'm going to take this bottom one here. We're going to do Q mesh flat island. We're going to pull this up and it's going to snap one rung up. If we want to snap up another one, we can snap one more rung up. And then I can also go, let's go to under your polygroup menu, geometry polygroup, you can go to group by normals. I'm going to take this normal right here and I'm just going to reflatten this with clip curve. There we go. So now if I go and flip my normals again, you're going to see we're going to have glass that's going to go through here, and then this is going to be really thick glass on the bottom and then thinner glass on the side. Now if we want to put a handle on this, looks like these handles on these things are pretty square. Let's orient ourselves on the floor here. We'll go Z forward, go around to the back. Hi Pepper, how are you doing today? So we're going to go square here and then like square down to here. She gets noisy when she thinks she's being fed. I'm going to go to delete a single poly. We'll go ahead and delete these, and we'll go ahead and bridge these two holes. We can do, let's do small round corners, or maybe tight round corners, and interactive resolution. So we'll go here to here, something like this. Now when we hit D on this, that'll go ahead and give us our dynamic subdivisions. And looks like, oops, let's redo that. Looks like these are getting a little bit tight in here. To alleviate that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide these edges. I'm going to turn on X symmetry. I'm going to slide these up so that they're a little bit more thin here. And now I can delete this, and now I can bridge again here. And I might change it from tight. That'll work. Here, here, pull it out, something like that. Okay, now we can also change the shape of this. If I want to, I can hold down Control Shift and isolate this, mask it, invert that mask, and then we can hit W. We can reposition this if we want to, but we can also go into something like, we can go to bend curve, which will give us some resolution, but instead of that, let's just use our deformer. So we're going to go through here, we're going to add some Z divides, maybe some X divides here, and now we can hold down Control, Alt, and then just mask these here, and now we can just do kind of overall kind of lattice deformer changes, which is what it'd be in Maya, freeform deformer, I think, in Max. FFD. Like this, or you can just go in here with your move brush. Kind of make this whatever shape you want. Anyway, the whole point of this is to talk about smoothing your normals and key shots so you can get a little bit nicer renders without having to really kill it on your subdivisions in ZBrush, which can sometimes it doesn't even help doing massive resolution within ZBrush. So if we go through here, we can hit D to dynamically subdivide, and then I'll kind of soften all these things up, but we're still going to get kind of faceted. We're getting scalloping on the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is add a couple control loops here. We're going to go to Insert Single Edge Loop, and we'll just put one here. We'll put it on the inside as well. There we go. If you want to, you can crease these edges. So if we go through here and we do like a crease tolerance of like 68, that'll go through here and crease these edges here. If I don't want any of these edges creased here, there's a better way to go about this. I can do crease polygroup here, and I can also just take all three of these polygroups here, make it all one polygroup. So now when I do crease PG and I hit D, it's going to leave those alone but crease all these other things. Now, if these things are super sharp, you can go in here again, which we did earlier, to your crease and your dynamic subdivisions here. So you can do like smooth subdivisions of 4, crease level of 2, and now it'll give it a not softer fallout. But we can also do that in KeyShot as well. So in this case, what I'm going to do is keep my crease levels cranked up, smooth subdivision levels of 2, let's say. And we'll just take this into KeyShot and we'll fix it. Now, what we can also do, what else do we want to do? We've got this mug in here. If we want to give it, let's put some liquid in here. So we're going to take this subtool here. We'll duplicate this off. We'll hold down Control Shift, isolate these two. Go into solo mode here. We'll go ahead and delete hidden. And we'll flip those. That's under your display properties. And we'll just put in Control Shift Alt. Actually, we want to, we want a half, I guess we could do a half full glass. So we've got this here, this here. I want to go transparent. There we go. So, you know what? That'll work. So this will be our liquid in here. So I flipped this thing, so I need to cap it. I'm going to go through here, and we'll do Close convex hole. Let's go ahead and cap this. Oops, first we'll do a delete hidden. Close convex hole. We'll make this one polygroup. And for the liquid here, we'll go ahead and just do a crease polygroup. And we'll also add a control loop up here. And if we want to do, oops, we can also duplicate this, isolate this top one, delete hidden, and now we can Q-mesh, polygroup all, and we can add a little foam on the top. That'll work. What else can we do? Now on this one, I am going to go ahead and do an uncrease all. Actually, we'll crease the bottom, crease, edge loop complete, and then we'll add a control loop in here. So now when I hit D for my dynamic, we'll get a rounded top and then a flatter bottom. Although, yeah, that'll work. Another thing we can do, let's try this. I want us like scatter bubbles in this thing. So let's think about how we can do that. So we've got our volume in here and we want to scatter bubbles throughout that volume. So what I can do is I can take this here, I'm going to duplicate it off. I'm going to go into solo mode here. I'm going to flip this and I'm going to make a really low resolution sphere. So I'm going to go over here to the sphere and I'm going to make this initialize 8 by 8 and make it a polymesh 3D. So now when I go back to this volume here, let's try and see if we can do, you want to insert Nanomesh M, we'll grab that polymesh sphere 3D, and we want to insert Nanomesh on all polygons through here. So here's our bubbles. And then on the Nanomesh here, we want to have a little bit more randomization, so we're going to crank up all our variances. And also do random distribution here. And if you look at beer and it's like, okay, it kind of starts fuzzing up and the bubbles are more concentrated on the top, you can figure that out as well. Let's go ahead and crank the size down. So you can do maybe a gradient or something like that. And also looks like our offsets need to be punched up. So we'll go ahead and do, because I want these things kind of swimming throughout the object here. And also let's go ahead and turn off show placement so we can get rid of that. Okay, so there's our bubbles just kind of hanging out. And again, you can change the distribution of these bubbles if we want to. If we don't want bubbles hanging around at the bottom, what we can do is we can clean those up later. So let's say this is basically the distribution of bubbles that I want. Let's go ahead and change the size just a bit here. Good enough. Okay, so we got some bubbles here. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and do inventory on the mesh. And we want to get rid of these extraneous bubbles. I'm trying to think if there's an elegant way to get rid of those, but the best way I can think of is just go to select rectangle here, change this to a circle. And let's just go ahead and isolate the bubbles that are within the liquid here. And I'll do Control-Shift-A to grow all, and then we'll go into solo mode here, and then we will delete hidden. And also, let's also get rid of this plane here. All right, so now we're back to bubbles. And also what we want to do is here's our liquid and here's our bubbles. So now with the liquid as my bounding box, I can go through here on this side and we can do Control-Shift and go back to our rectangle stroke. And we'll grab all the bubbles within this here, Control-Shift-A, delete hidden, and now our bubbles are sitting within that volume that's going to be our liquid here. So we got bubbles, we got liquid, we got a mug, and we got foam. So now let's see. For the liquid here, let's go ahead and hit D to dynamically subdivide. I think that'll work. And then D to dynamically subdivide this one up once. And again, we're going to fix this faceting when we get into a key shot. And then D to dynamically subdivide. So let's see how this all works. So let's go over here to our render, external renderer, key shot, and we'll hit BPR. I'll send it over to key shot. And let me make sure Okay, looks good. Sorry if my head's a little bit, okay, looks like my blue screen's working fine. Okay, so, so when we have this problem here, it probably means we can go back to ZBrush here. And so we've got, well, let's see, Polymesh cylinder 1, 2, 4, and 3. Oh, we need to turn these eyeballs on. Duh. BPR again. And then we'll head back over to QShop. There we go. So now you're going to see immediately when we go over here to materials and we assign a glass material, and we'll do glass solid white, you're going to see terrible faceting. You can subdivide the heck out of your geometry. Oh, another thing we need to do is back up that Z fighting, but we'll fix that in a second. So I'm going to go over here and we'll just isolate just the glass here. So to fix this issue, one thing you can do is you can subdivide it in ZBrush, but that still may not fix the problem. You can also go over here, if you're using KeyShot Pro, you can go over here to Edit, Geometry. Oh, you can also just select the object here and right click, Edit Geometry. And we're going to do Edit Normals. And you can also separate geometry once you're in here, separate surfaces and stuff like that. And you can do Calculate Vertex Normals, hit Apply, and that'll go ahead and soften your vertex normals to get a much nicer render. Now we still have those really sharp edges. If I go over here to Plastic, let's do a hard, rough plastic here. We'll do gray. You can see we're getting smoother fall off on here, but on our edges are still really hard. So you can go in here and you can select those, the polygons here, and you can change this radius here so you can kind of actually back off the corners here just using this corner radius on your surface here. So that's just another way, instead of going through and building in those subdivisions in ZBrush, you can just do that all within KeyShot here. So if we go back to our glass solid white here, there we go. Much nicer corners, all that good stuff. Now if I go through here and I turn back on, say, the liquid, you're going to see I have Z fighting on here. So if I go through here and we'll do, let's go, where are my liquids at? We drop in beer. Oops. And we go ahead and crank this transparency just up to, like, say 1. We're still going to have the Z fighting issue. When you get the liquids, you have this refractive index. What you would technically want to do is break off this surface that are touching the glass, and you want to change the refractive index to match that of the glass, which is 1.5, and then this one up here you would want to keep it probably 1.3 or 1, probably 1.3, and this surface would be at a 1.3 refractive index. But to skip all that, because that just gets a little bit much, especially when you're dynamically subdividing, the edges separate and stuff like that. You can break apart surfaces in there too. We can give that a shot maybe. But what I am going to do with this liquid here, I'm going to go into solo mode, and we're just going to take this Q mesh, polygroup all, and we're just going to take this and hold down shift and just bop that back just a little bit. And same thing for the foam, just to back that off a little bit. And now when you go to BPR here, that's kind of the easy way out of that problem here. Oops, looks like I need to go and have everything turned on, go out of solo mode here. There we go. And now we can go to glass solid. I'll go ahead and fix this problem again. So select, edit geometry, edit normals. Do we have 2 glasses in here? Okay, you know what we're going to do? File, new, discard. There we go. BPR. And we'll resize this. Nice, fresh, new scene. Okay, so we got here, we got a glass solid. We'll go ahead and fix this. Here we got our scene, right click, edit geometry. So this is where you could do split object surfaces, and then if you go through here you can do it by a normal angle, so you could split the top and the bottom out back there. So maybe we'll try that, but we'll go next, calculate, apply, and then also with the selected we'll go ahead and round out those edges just a bit, or maybe a lot. Okay, so now that we got that, we can go into our liquids here, and so this will be our foam. I'm going to go ahead and hide that for now. And so for our beer, we'll go ahead and throw that in there. And we'll go ahead and double click this, and it's looking pretty dark, so we're going to type in 1 for that transparency. Now, like I was saying before, the refractive index, since I backed it off and it's not technically touching anything, I think I can keep it as what it is. But for those bubbles, let's see, these bubbles here, these ones, I'm just going to use, let's see if we can just use a glass for that. And we'll change the refractive index to 1. And we also need to change our lighting here. So we have basic lighting on. We don't have any caustics turned on. So I'm going to go over here. If I go to product, we get a slightly better render. If I go down here to jewelry, that's where we'll get a much better render here. So now if we go back to our scene here, geometry view we don't need to look at. And let's go to materials here. Let's see, 1.3. 1.5 probably isn't it. Let's see, 1. Oh, you know what? The color is right. Let's go ahead and turn on refractive for that. Excuse me. So, that's also maybe match that color back. Give me just a second. Sorry about that. Give me just another second. Excuse me. So, whenever I have allergies, I need to remember, number 1, have water. And number 2, have cough drops. This is what happens to me when I was at GDC. There's always, at the end of September, early October, gets me every single year. Much better. Okay. Sorry about that. Be more prepared. I really hate allergies. Let's see. Show all parts. So basically what I did was tile a fractal in there. You know, those bubbles, let me see if I can just do beer on those bubbles because they're kind of bothering me. Liquid beer. We'll do our own liquid beer on those ones. Look kind of dark. Oh, you know what? Because we need to go back here. Let's look at barrel, do transparency distance 1. There we go. Something like that. Now let's give this environment something a little bit better. environments here. I want better reflections in here. And then we can kind of kill that environment. It's a little bit busy. We'll go to dark gray. All right. Okay. What else? What else? We can put, now the cool thing, this is Keyshot 7.1 Pro for ZBrush. And we got that all smoothed out. Labels are pretty cool too. They're a lot easier to use. So if we go over here to, that's a good way. You know, I guess the easiest way. And the only reason I'm bringing this up, do I have any other labels? Probably not. Well, it doesn't matter. So I can go through here. You can drag from this window here, just right onto your object, and you can apply that as a label. And you can go through here and you can kind of scale this up. And just using this because this is what I had recently. And then you can kind of position that label there. Now it's going all the way through your object here. So you can hit OK. And now with this label selected, if you want to fix that depth problem, if we double click this material, go to texture labels, you're going to see that there is a depth here. So if we crank this depth up, it's going to make it disappear from this side. Now, we do have two sides of this glass. So even if you turn off two-sided, it's not going to fix this doubled up issue right here. In order to fix that, I believe I would have to split these surfaces off, which I'm not going to bother doing right now. But you can see how easy labels are. You can go through here, and if you want to reposition this label, label properties, label textures, you can go here to move texture. This thing is so much nicer than it has been previously. You don't have to, you know, I can kind of center it up here. If you want to swap this label out, we can go through here and right click diffuse and go to textures, texture map. Let's see if we can just hot swap it. Didn't keep it. I also went back to box model. Let's change that back to planar. And you don't have to planar map or box model any of that stuff. In fact, let's go ahead and kill that label. This will just be easier. Let's go to the white label here. There we go. You can do cylindrical if you find that, you know, if your label is getting kind of stretched at the edges, because a planar, which is what the default is going to kind of, just like when you're doing Matchmaker, it's going to curve and stretch when you get to the sides of the surface. So you can change that to a cylindrical if that's bugging you. But I think this will work just fine here. Okay, so we got a mug here. We'll position this here. Alrighty, checkbox, go to depth here, labels. Where is that? Oh, label textures, depth. So we'll crank up the depth a little bit, and then I'll kill this backside. It's not going to kill this doubling up, but I'm not going to bother splitting those surfaces out. I think we've done enough keyshot rendering. So another thing you can do, if you have the Pro version, go to Edit, Add Geometry, Plane. And if you want to kind of supplement your scene with more lighting, you can just add your own lighting. Now, you don't have to do Edit, Add Geometry, Plane. You can just bring a plane over when you import your objects into ZBrush, and you can have that available to you. So don't feel like you have to get Pro just for the ability to add a plane. You can add a plane and bring it in whenever you'd like. But now we can do with this plane is we can go over here to Materials, drop in an area light, double click that. We'll make it not visible camera. Go ahead and lighten this up a little bit, and we'll change this to watts. Now, I guess first we'll keep it on visible to camera so you can see it. So we'll go ahead and, oops, move part, scale it up. There we go. So we're getting reflections from our environment map. This is also lighting our map, and we're also getting lighting information from our plane over here. So if I go over here to the environment and I drop that brightness down, now it's just being lit by this plane here. If we go over here to material, environment lighting, you can also try turning on, ground illumination is on, yes. Self shadows. There's also a new thing over here, I think. Lighting, environment, occlusion ground shadows in your environment map. I'm not sure if that makes much of a difference with this in this particular instance, but now you can do lighting from there. You can do lighting from your environment as well. You can do both, as well as there's one more thing. Oh yeah, so you can also go over here to your lighting, or your environment, I'm sorry, and instead of doing this, let's go back to our lighting environment. Let's go to our environment over here, and let's do sun and sky. Oh, ZBrush also has their own lighting environments. If you get the ZBrush Bridge, I think you'll get the little ZBrush pack. We can also do sun and sky, and it doesn't really matter. We'll do Los Angeles sunset 4K. Now the cool thing about this new sun and sky, I'm going to go here and turn off our plane there. So we do the environment here, and we click on the sun. Now we can just dynamically move the sun, which is a lot nicer than it has been previously too. It used to be you had to dial in the light or the time of day. So now you can just kind of drag it through, you know, golden hour here in the daytime, or we can do high noon, something like that. Lighting environment, so we can see the lighting environment here, etc., etc. And you can also update this one, so you can do it in the HDRI editor. And then here you can add a pin, and it'll add a pin. You can go through here and you can say, okay, I want to make this pin rectangular. I can move it around, and that'll add more reflections in here. It's probably a little bit easier to see if we go here to a studio. Let's go studio, just a black, yeah, all black. So now with an all black studio, if you go over here and add a pin, now you can see how it's affecting your environment. You're just creating a lighting environment around this object to light your object. You can also, I believe, if we go here to the HDRI editor canvas, that'll bring up an extra canvas, and you can also go add a pin, and now you can do control left mouse button to add a highlight. So if you hold down control and say I want a pin right here where that logo is, it'll put a highlight right where I control clicked that pin here. So I want to delete this one, I can just delete that. And now I can click this one. You can make it half or rectangular or full or circular, whatever you want to do to make that highlight exactly how you want it. And you can also go in here to your color, and you can make that, you know, a red highlight if you wanted to. So a lot of cool stuff you can do with this. And then once you're done with this, you can export this as an HDRI. You can also start with these and modify them however you'd like, and then export those as well. So a lot of cool stuff you can do. But let's see, we'll go back to our apartment. Go back to our environment. And we'll go back to, you don't want an HDRI editor. We'll go back to our color. All right, so, and we'll also go back to our lighting here. Let's go back to our scene. I guess we can turn on that plane. Gives it a little extra oomph. And there you go. So, yeah, so key shots should be physically based. It should be physically accurate. So if you go over to the materials and stuff, and you go over here to the metals and stuff, and you select these, they're all dialed in so that it should be accurate. And also, they took out the, what do they call it? Anodized. So the anodized is actually built in. And you can also change, so what we have here on the labels is, looks like that bumps a little bit much on that. Oh, you can also hover over these and get a new preview of that. So it's like we can double click this one and go, you know what, the texture on this, the bump height is a little much on there. You can drop that down. And also it looks like it, I want to make it a little more transparent. There's translucency. Let's make that refractive index. Knock that back a little bit. I don't know. I have to play with that a little bit more. I don't have a good foam. Oh, also what you could do is we can check the cloud library and go, you guys have any of that foam? Styrofoam, polyester, closed cell black. So if you wanted to try any of these, we can do like white styrofoam. We could download that, and it's going to go ahead and add that to my downloads here. And then I can just, man, yeah, that's terrible. I made a terrible foam there. So if I can take this, we can try like white styrofoam. It's probably not going to work that great, but we can use that as our foam for the top of our beer if we want to. Diffuse specular roughness, and also under the textures here, we've got all these, and all of these are going to be synced. So if I change the scale on one of these, it's going to change it on all of them. So we can go ahead and drop that down, and then the bump. We can select that and change the bump height maybe, I don't know. Anyway, a lot of different ways to skin this cat here. And on this diffuse, what we can do is also, I was hoping, let's see, properties, oh here we go, diffuse. We can blend with color, so if we want to kind of knock down that pure white, we can blend it with kind of a amber. I'll kind of knock it down just a little bit. Cool. Yeah, but I just wanted to show you guys so that you don't have to do all of your model editing within ZBrush. You can also do it within KeyShot and also soften the edges and stuff like that, so you don't have to sit there and do too much editing in ZBrush, especially if you don't know how smooth you want your surfaces to be. You can just fix that with the surface normals within KeyShot. Let's go ahead and save this here. We'll call this all right. Looks like I'm already going past 8 o'clock, so I'm gonna say thanks everybody. Tomorrow, or so on Tuesday mornings, I do Pixelogic's live stream. I'm gonna do my own live stream on Thursday on my PavMic, twitch.tv/PavMic, and we're gonna be going over. I did an article on the gun I did for the ZBrush 4R8, that little sci-fi gun. I'm going to be doing a video walkthrough on the processes I use for that. So I did an article for a magazine, and we'll just be doing a video companion piece to the article where I just go through and do each step with you guys. So I'll use Arnold. I have to get that set up. I haven't used Arnold at home, so I'd have to go through and see if I can get that to work. But yeah, thanks again everybody, and see you Thursday on my channel if you want to go through the video companion piece for the intro, the making of that sci-fi gun. Thank you, and I'll see y'all next time.